I sold my dreams to pay for my father's treatment, but who am I without them now? The greatest performance I ever gave wasn't a symphony played in a hall. It was the quiet, brutal piece of self-destruction I played in my own life. I'm Alex, 35 now, and I saved my father's life with money, but the cost was the melody of my own soul. I look at my successful, sterile office and realize I'm a stranger haunting a life that technically belongs to me. My life was supposed to be defined by silence and sound, by the complex, emotional architecture of classical composition. I was 28, living a sparse existence that was rich in potential, subsisting on ramen and the sheer, intoxicating belief that I was on the cusp of greatness. For 10 years, every minute of my free time had been dedicated to music. I breathed harmony and bled dissonance. My focus was singular, the Aethelred Fellowship. It was the most prestigious, life-changing grant for emerging composers, offering 3 years of total creative freedom and the world premiere of a major work at the Vienna State Opera. To apply, I needed to complete a complex, 4-movement symphony, a piece I called The Unwritten Future, a work that was draining every ounce of my creative energy but felt like the absolute truth of my identity. I was months away from completing the final movement, the moment of resolution, the perfect cadence to my life's purpose. My rock, my audience, and my constant inspiration was my father, Elias, 60. He wasn't rich, but he was wise. He had always supported my impractical dream, working extra hours as a carpenter just to pay for my rare access to an old concert hall piano. He was my calm harbor, the one who listened to every rough draft, every half-formed idea, always telling me that my music would change the world. Then, the world shattered. The diagnosis was a silent, sudden blast, an aggressive, rare form of cancer. Standard treatment offered only temporary relief. The only path to a genuine, long-term remission was an experimental clinical trial in Germany, a place with cutting-edge immunotherapy. The prognosis was terrifying, the treatment necessary, and the cost was catastrophic, $400,000 upfront and uninsured. My father was devastated, but resolute in his refusal. He saw the financial ruin his illness would bring to our family and, worse, the complete cessation of my musical career. He told me, quietly but firmly, that he would choose the standard, palliative route so that I could finish my symphony. He was willing to die to protect my dream. That was the moment the music stopped. I looked at my father, a good, simple man who had sacrificed everything for me, and I knew there was no choice. The symphony, the fellowship, the opera house, they were all just notes on paper compared to the simple, tangible warmth of his presence. His life was the one performance I absolutely had to save. Our family was destitute. My current income, teaching piano to a few disinterested kids, barely covered rent. I had a single, marketable skill that I had abandoned a decade ago. I was a brilliant, almost obsessive coder. I had a knack for algorithmic finance, a skill that could command a massive salary but demanded a massive soul sacrifice. The plan formed with a cold, terrifying logic. I had 2 weeks before the clinic needed the initial deposit. I couldn't finish the symphony and apply for the fellowship. That required pure, undivided, creative focus, a commodity I no longer possessed. I had to choose the instant, massive paycheck. I scrubbed the grease paint of my artistic life away and put on a suit. I used my old coding connections, spun a narrative of a hiatus, and within 3 days, I landed a job as a lead quant developer at a high-frequency trading firm. The starting salary was obscene, the bonus structure astronomical, and the required hours were inhumane, 60 to 80 hours a week of relentless, analytical pressure. The job demanded 100% of my mental capacity, leaving nothing left for the quiet, complex language of composition. My final act as a composer was the hardest. To fund the immediate travel and the initial down payment for the trial, I sold the custom-made grand piano my father had bought me on a payment plan over 5 years, the instrument that held every memory of my creative awakening. The day the movers took it, the house felt silent for the first time. I watched the black, gleaming wood disappear, and felt a piece of my own spine go with it. I signed the contract, paid the first deposit, and flew my father to Germany. I was a professional success, but internally, I was already dead. What would you do? Sell the physical manifestation of your lifelong dream to save your parent, knowing that your new life would ensure you could never touch that dream again. The next 7 years were a blur of numbers and caffeine. I became incredibly good at the job. My mind, which was once tuned to the subtle shifts in a minor key, was now ruthlessly efficient at detecting market anomalies and writing razor-sharp algorithms. I was praised, promoted, and rewarded handsomely. The money flowed like a river, paying for every procedure, every therapy session, and every checkup. My father, Elias, fought through the trial and, miraculously, came through. He is 67 now, stable, healthy, and cherishing his unexpected second chance at life. He knows I saved him, and his quiet gratitude is the most precious thing in my life. Every time he laughs, every time we sit together on a Sunday, I know the sacrifice was worth it. But the success I achieved became its own cruel prison. When the financial pressure finally eased 2 years ago, I thought I could go back. I bought a new, beautiful piano, an even finer instrument than the one I sold. I set aside evenings and weekends, trying to find my way back to the unwritten future. I would sit there, fingers hovering over the keys, and nothing would come. My mind, so long trained to process data, risk, and efficiency, had become rigidly analytical. The part of my brain that understood passion, improvisation, and the messy, glorious failure of true creativity was muted, deadened by spreadsheets and logic gates. I could execute complex code, but I couldn't execute a complex emotion. The ability to surrender to the illogical, beautiful impulse of art had been surgically removed. I tried to force it. I stared at the unfinished score of my final movement, but it looked foreign. The notes were just data points, lacking any inherent warmth or purpose. I realized I hadn't just postponed the Aethelred Fellowship, I had killed the composer inside me. The 5 years I spent in finance didn't just take my time, they fundamentally reshaped my identity. I am a technical genius, a financial success, a hero to my family, but I am entirely hollow. I have the security, the respect, and the comfort, but I lost the one thing that defined who I was. I recently walked through a local park and saw a young man, probably 22, hunched over a cheap keyboard, headphones on, hands flying with furious, joyful passion. He was oblivious to the world, utterly immersed in his own chaotic creation. I stood there, watching him, and felt a profound, devastating pang of loss, not for the music I failed to write, but for the person who I failed to remain. That young man was me, and I was watching a ghost. My father is alive and well, and that is an absolute, non-negotiable victory. But I am left with the crushing, existential question, who is Alex without the unwritten future? Who am I when the only thing left is a successful shell, a man defined solely by the money he makes, not the art he creates? I saved the man I loved, but I destroyed the life I loved. The irony is that my father, seeing my quiet despair, now gently encourages me to go back to the music. He doesn't understand that the man who could go back is gone. I am a stranger to the instrument, and the instrument is a constant, mocking reminder of the person I had to kill to save him. I stand at the top of my professional world, surrounded by wealth and accomplishment, but I feel like I'm looking down a sheer drop into the abyss of my abandoned identity. I have my father, but I have lost my soul. I wonder if I can ever truly build a new future, or if I am forever sentenced to live as the successful ghost of the composer who never was. If you were in my shoes, living a life of comfort that came at the cost of your very identity, would you feel like a hero, or would the profound regret of the life unlived haunt you forever? If this raw emotional story of ultimate sacrifice and the crushing weight of lost identity resonated with you, please hit the like button, share this profound narrative, and subscribe to follow my journey as I try to find the composer hiding inside the executive.